The fragrance bug is a sneaky one, and it can bite hard if you're not careful. It's far too easy to spend above your means or to even go into debt chasing that next fragrance or fragrances to add to your collection. If this is the first time we're meeting, my name is James, and today on Cheapie Fragrance Reviews, I'm going over 10 tips to help you build your fragrance collection the right way. Be sure to stick around to the end because I'll be giving you an excellent way to have your whole collection pay for itself. All right, let's get into it. Tip number 1, set a budget. Sounds obvious, right? Well, unfortunately, collecting fragrances can actually be quite addictive, just like any kind of shopping or retail therapy. So what I'm telling you to do is set a hard dollar amount per month or per 2 months or whatever that you're comfortable with, or more importantly, that you can actually afford to spend on fragrances. And do not exceed that dollar amount, period. Tip 2, grow over time. Look, it seems like nobody wants to wait for gratification these days. We shop online and we get all pissy if it's not going to arrive in 2 business days, or we spend $5 extra at the other retailer if they promise a quicker delivery date. You get my point. Well, I'm here to tell you, have patience. Not necessarily in delivery times, but that's important too. But more so what I mean is, be patient on wanting to have a huge fragrance collection that fills a shelf like the one behind me in just a matter of months. Those of us reviewing fragrances on YouTube or Instagram or frag enthusiasts in general have been building their fragrance collection for years or even decades. So don't try to catch up and don't compare your fragrance collection to theirs. Additionally, if you have this magic target number in your mind that I'm going to be satisfied with my collection when it reaches 50 bottles or 100 bottles, I'm sorry to tell you that when you hit that benchmark, you're not going to be satisfied. You're still going to want another and another and another, because there's always new fragrances that you're going to hear about. There's always new fragrances that are going to hit the market. And unfortunately, the way that this world works, you're going to want another one. Tip number 3, shop at the right places. I can't tell you how important this one is. Because of that, I have a couple of points to make on this. First reason is kind of obvious. You want to buy at the right place because you want to know that you're getting a legitimate, authentic fragrance and not some terrible counterfeit. Nothing will irritate you more than paying 10% less only to get a 100% counterfeit bottle. My second point in this tip is to buy from discounters, vetted discounters. If you're interested in building a sizable collection and you cared enough to click on this video, you cannot afford to pay retail. There are some fantastic discounters that can save you a ton of your hard-earned money. I also encourage you to price shop amongst those discounters, because not every discounter is going to have every fragrance at the cheapest price. One may have Le Male Le Parfum the cheapest. The other one might have this Mont Blanc fragrance the cheapest. You're gonna have to look around. It depends on the stock that they have on hand and the overall availability in the market. Another great place to buy fragrances is on buy, sell, and swap Facebook groups dedicated to fragrances. So do yourself a favor, buy smart, don't pay retail when you don't have to. There are some brands that you just can't avoid paying retail. Chanel, for example, you won't find that on any discounters. You have to purchase that from Chanel or from a major department store. I've linked some discounters below in the description, all of which are 100% legit. Most of the fragrances behind me and many of the fragrances that are outside of the frame were all purchased on these very discounters. Of over 300 bottles that I've ordered online from these discounters, I've never received a single counterfeit fragrance. Tip number 4, build with versatility in mind. It is important to consider the versatility of an individual fragrance. However, it's equally as important to consider the versatility of your collection as a whole. Meaning, you don't want to end up with a collection comprised only of freshies, date night fragrances, blue fragrances, office fragrances, formal fragrances. Likewise, you want to have seasonal versatility as well. You don't want to have only summer fragrances or only fall fragrances that are too light to be able to cut through the cold in the winter. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in the middle of fall or winter thinking, I don't have any fragrances for this time of year. And you'll blow your whole budget trying to figure out what you're going to buy to fill that gap in your collection. This kind of brings me to another point within this tip, and that is buy fragrances relevant to the season you're in. It just makes more sense to buy a fragrance that I can wear now versus one that I have to wait 6 months to wear. That one can wait, I'll buy it 6 months from now. Tip number 5, don't blind buy. Blind buying. Blind buying is nothing more than purchasing a fragrance that you have no experience with, you've never smelled it before in your life, and you're just gonna roll the dice and hope that you like it. Unfortunately, fragrances are a lot like a brand new car. As soon as you purchase it, you drive it off the lot, or in this case, cut that cellophane and pull it off the box, the value of that fragrance just dropped dramatically. So your resale value on that, should you not like it, is plummeted. Look, I know you'll blind buy. Everybody does, and it's okay from time to time. But I'll tell you, please limit the amount of fragrances you blind buy. If you're able to sample a fragrance locally, be it a Sephora or a Macy's and Nordstrom, Dillard, whatever, do it. If not, samples and decants are your friends. There are a ton of websites and Facebook groups for buying and selling decants and samples. eBay is also a great place to purchase decants and samples as long as you take a look at the seller's feedback history and they have a good amount of recent history. Tip number 6, do your research. You're watching this video, so you obviously know you can look to fragrance reviewers for assistance, but there are also a ton of great resources to educate yourself on fragrances or a particular fragrance. Websites like Base Notes, Fragrantica, Parfumo are all great for reading up on a particular fragrance, finding out the notes, reading other reviews, etc. So the next time that you're unable to sample it or get a decant of a fragrance that you're looking at purchasing, go to one of those websites. Identify the notes or accords in a fragrance that you like and don't like, and weigh that against what you're reading on Fragrantica or these websites and see if that fragrance has those notes. If it has something that you don't like, maybe that's a sign you don't want to buy that fragrance until you can legitimately sample it, especially if it's an expensive fragrance. All right, if there's one tip I wish I would have known when I started collecting, it's this next one. Tip number 7, you don't always have to buy the biggest bottle. In fact, I would say buy small every time. I have so many fragrances that I will never go through an entire bottle of probably 95% of them. The amount of money I could have saved if I was buying 30 or 50 ml bottles instead of 100 ml bottles, I could have a fragrance collection 30 or 40% bigger than my current collection. And look, if you find a fragrance that you really love and you've gone through that entire bottle, then buy another one at that time. Buy 100 ml at that time. You know you like it, you know you'll go through it, but buy small first. Tip number 8, don't jump on the hype train. When a new fragrance drops, you'll see a ton of YouTube reviewers or Instagram reviewers clamoring about that fragrance, hyping it up, or talking trash about it. But don't jump on the hype. Here's 3 reasons why. 1, it hasn't hit discounters yet, so you'll likely have to pay retail for it if you want it. Number 2, it's still new enough that you're not going to be able to get samples or decants of it, which means that you're going to have to blind buy it. Blind buying at retail is even worse than blind buying at a discounter. So unless it's been out for 2 to 3 weeks, or even longer in some cases, you're not going to find another person that's purchased it and is willing to decant it yet to recoup some of their costs. Which leads me to the 3rd. There will be many people who did jump on that hype train and didn't like the fragrance as much as they thought they were going to like it. So what are they left to do? They're left to try to sell it on something like Poshmark or Mercari or in the Facebook groups that I've already mentioned. So now is your opportunity to go into those Facebook groups, to go to Poshmark or Mercari or a respected eBay seller and get that fragrance at a fraction of the cost, at what would be a discounter cost. And of course, by now, you've had time to sample it, right? All right, tip number 9, let a fragrance sit in your shopping cart for a while. I can't tell you how many times this has saved me from impulse buying 5 fragrances at a time. Because I'll go through and I'll be like, oh, yep, I want that. Yep, add to cart. Before I know it, I have 5, 6, 7 fragrances in my cart. The smartest thing I can tell you is to just let them sit in your cart. More often than not, when you come back 3 or 4 days later, a week later, that impulsivity that you were going through when you were adding to cart is not going to be as strong anymore. And those fragrances might not be as appealing to you. More often than not, I ended up taking at least half of them out of my cart. Okay, so those are 9 important tips on helping you to keep from overspending while building your fragrance collection. But at the beginning of this video, I told you that I was going to give you an excellent way to have your whole fragrance collection pay for itself. So here's tip number 10. Decant or split your fragrances. That's right. You as a collector took the prudent first step of first sampling a fragrance before blind buying it, and so many other people do as well. So once you've purchased a new fragrance, decant some of that bottle and sell it. Or better yet, decant some of the fragrances that are already in your collection. Purchase some 2, 3, 5, or 10 ml atomizers off of Amazon, some plumber's tape, maybe a cheap labeler, and decant your fragrances. If you make 10 5 milliliter decants out of a bottle that you just paid, say, $100 for a 100 ml bottle, and you sell each decant for $10, you just recouped the entire cost that you paid to purchase that bottle, and you still have half of that fragrance to keep for yourself. Because I love you guys so much, I'm gonna give you one more bonus tip, and that tip is to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell to be notified of future videos, because coming up soon, I'm gonna release a video about decanting that includes how to decant, where to get the supplies, what supplies to get, how to price your decants, and where to sell them, and you won't want to miss it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all again on the next one.